So for today's community call, we wanted to start things off with Thomas has been working on a little bit of a product plan on how we can bring ResearchHub closer to the functionality of like a GitHub for Science. And we're trying to essentially like put together the steps for like that feature set where researchers can in theory publish on ResearchHub, maybe have a collaborative editor, seek peer review, and then have funding mixed in. So Thomas, do you want to take it away?
Sure. AirPods aren't connecting. Okay, there we go. Can you guys hear me?
Perfect.
Yeah.
As I guess a little bit of context here while Thomas figures it out, we were thinking about trying to have like a Authoria style collaborative editor. Have you guys used that before? It's like a kind of like a medium editor for science.
Can you share a link?
Yeah, let me pull it up. And one of the cool things that these guys have is it's like a easy collaborative editor, kind of like Google Docs. But they actually are also a preprint server now too, just because people who edit, together on Authoria will just like one button straight to the preprint server there. So it could be one of a few things that Thomas will go over of ways to potentially have some of that like primary authorship happening on ResearchHub. I put a link in the messages for anybody else who's interested.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Yeah, so basically the goal for all of this is to allow original research to be created and published within ResearchHub itself. Yeah, so right now ResearchHub is sort of like aggregating existing content similar to a website like Reddit. So we could be maybe more aptly described as Reddit for Science currently. But we're planning to basically add features to move towards more of like a GitHub for Science, where there's work in progress research being conducted on the site itself. Yeah, so the motivation for this was we had a Hacker News thread for ResearchHub, and in the comments of that thread, multiple users pointed out that we bear a little resemblance to GitHub right now in our current form. We don't use Git. It doesn't have version control. It doesn't really have community contributions to projects, more just like commentary after the fact. And it doesn't let people like open issues on the projects like GitHub would allow. And we can't currently, I guess you can kind of like publish original papers here, but that's usually it's like uploaded from somewhere else, like archive. Like it's posted there first and then sort of like linked to ResearchHub. So yeah, it's not our priority right now. Then these two users, I don't know if you guys can read it, but they basically suggest like we could just basically rebuild GitHub, but orient the UI towards academia and like publishing and peer review. And that could be potentially valuable or better than our current product. And yeah, our about page actually does say that like our mission is to make research function more efficiently, similar to what GitHub has done with software engineering. Just make research function more like software engineering. So yeah, some ideas to do that is basically like the really obvious one is we could just do sort of like what GitHub and GitLab and those sites do, where you build a platform around Git itself. Like Git is the software that allows you to create these repositories and like handles the version control for all of it. And GitHub and GitLab, they're actually just platforms for hosting these repositories. So, and they build like extra features on top of that, like the issues and the pull requests and all that stuff. So we could go down a similar route as well. I'm not sure exactly how hard it would be to pull off like what GitHub and GitLab are doing by like building on top of Git. There's also concerns that scientists, they might not be familiar with Git. Like Git is mainly a software engineering tool. So software engineers, they have to learn to use it basically in their job. But that's not the case with researchers. So it's a pretty steep learning curve, and it might be a big ask to actually ask researchers to basically learn this new tool and that they don't already know in their current workflow. So what Authoria does, Authoria is actually an example of another platform that's built on Git, but they basically simplify the user experience. They hide a lot of Git's advanced, or a lot of Git's features in general. Like Git has like commits and like branches, and I don't think Authoria shows those. It functions more like just a file storage server, like a Dropbox or something like that. Yeah, but it's pretty familiar for scientists. You just like upload your files to it, and they kind of like, you can access them from within like the main article. You can like import your files in and basically work on like a Google Docs style view of it. And yeah, you don't have to really worry about all the complexities of Git, even though it's actually built on top of Git on the back end. So
do you want to jump into your designs?
Yeah.
I think it might be a better way to show.
Yep. Sure thing. So I can jump into some sort of designs of what this might look like. Okay. So this is a pretty rough, like just first kind of attempt at it, but kind of, if you imagine our current paper page, this is sort of like the finished view of it, of the paper. And yeah, it's basically our existing paper page, the way we have it right now. But we've added like some tabs here, and this isn't like final or anything, but just like one way this could go, where you can basically click on this files and it'll bring up pretty much like a corresponding Git style repository for this page, which contains all like the background stuff, like the PDF for it, maybe any like pictures that you're using in it, any images and figures. If you're using some code to like generate like some of the figures, it could be stored here as well, pretty much like a Git repository. And yeah, you can pretty much commit your work here, ideally, and collaborate with other people and perhaps open issues or peer reviews. Like it's kind of like a similar-ish concept. So maybe they could be merged on ResearchHub into kind of the same idea, where you can comment on, yeah, like existing stuff in the project and like bring up maybe like suggest your own improvements, and they could maybe get like merged in like pull requests kind of on GitHub. So that's sort of like what peer review is already doing. So kind of makes sense. And yeah, so this is kind of like the issues or pull requests, but in flavored kind of like in academia language. And then we could also, so kind of the main goal of doing all this as well is to create or let people put their work in progress research on ResearchHub. And then once they have it there, they can apply for funding for their current research project, which lets us like disrupt the whole research flow, basically. Yeah.
Makes sense to stop here for a second and just grab feedback on these designs and the concept in general. And then I have a couple open questions that I think would be worth asking just to get everybody's opinion.
Sure. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Yeah. So when you mention apply for funding, are you thinking of like partnering with funding sources, or is it funded by users or through the site?
Yeah. So currently The plan is sort of something like you would apply, and then the ResearchHub moderator team would look over the grants and act sort of like as a committee and like award RSC to your grant if it gets accepted. In the future, we might also like let users crowdfund this. So like if you find a repo that you really like, you could support it yourself in a crowdfunded style, similar to how GitHub actually has like lets people support repos, or maybe something similar to like Gitcoin grants. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Thanks. Yeah. But yeah, it's still early, so if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear it.
Dragan, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask, what are the remaining actions below the title of the paper? The 6 icons. Just below the title on the first screen.
Oh, I see. This is edit, share, support with RSC, flag, remove, and then remove and ban.
And those last two are just for moderators.
Yeah, and yeah, these last two are for moderators, and this is currently on the regular website as well. Yeah, if you go on any paper, you'll see these icons on the current website.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Have you, Patrick, you have talked to Brian Nozick, right?
Yep, yeah.
So they have a similar structure already on OSF, right? It's kind of like it's Git, the castrated version of Git, right? And the reason is that you don't have commits or forks there or whatever, mostly because you don't actually really need them for type of stuff people will upload, right? Like if someone will upload a giant Excel spreadsheet, it's kind of gonna be dumb, you know, like suggesting something for it or whatever. Or if people will upload like the executive file of their script, right?
That was one of my big questions, I think, is like to hear if you guys see this as significantly different than what Open Science Framework is offering.
So Nami is saying that there is, you know, some like fork functionality in OSF. Yeah, like scientists are not. They have a, they just dump stuff there.
Right.
So it just chills there.
Well, one thing I want to kind of wonder too is like, if the repository is public, would you publish stuff to it when it's not done?
What do you? So I think we need to disambiguate the use of the term publish. There is a strong, very specific meaning for word publish in academia, and this is actually something I wanted to ask here because I was looking at this thing that you sent of Euphoria, right? And it seems they have like 2 types of submissions. One of them, the people have actually published in a real journal, right? And just they basically copy paste their resources here, similar to what people do in ResearchHub. And the other one is where they publish on Euphoria itself. And the bad news for those articles, so here, for example, on this very page, like if you open the sex-dependent differential transcript expression. So now go to the DOI, see how it's, yeah, right here above it in cursive, it says the journal is Euphoria in cursive, that's published in Euphoria. Now try to find this article anywhere else, like use it Google Scholar, you won't find this article, unfortunately. So it's a little bit of a dead endy. I mean, what I mean by find is like through the citation managers or citation, what is it called, like Web of Science? I don't know, like databases or something. So to be recognizable, essentially. And this is something you're gonna need for sure, because I see here 2 paths, right? One path is you stop calling it publishing, right? You develop it as a supplementary. I don't know, something for usability, something where people can store their preliminary data and get feedback from people, but they will actually publish in their journal of choice, right? That's not going to be ResearchHub. and you can be okay with that. That's one path. Another path is you fight for the status of an actual journal, but that one is going to be like hard. I think you need to hire people who actually have had experience, doing a journal, because it's a very specific skill set.
It's funny. That's almost the exact two paths that Pat Wu said yesterday when we first chatted about this feature. So yeah, I think we have to decide internally what we want to do. At least from my perspective, when I spoke with Brian Nosek, one thing that he thought that we could do was to be the peer review layer on top of their kind of file dump. So like in theory, someone could share a preprint, and then like I think even like Authoria has buttons that say, hey, automatically submit to Nature. I know bioRxiv has that too. Like when you get published there, they'll help you with the submission process. So we could do something like that from a collaborative text editor or PDF. And then also say, hey, instead, if you want to put it on ResearchHub, we'll put up a bounty for peer review. You can do version control. And then eventually you can get the ResearchHub sticker of peer review published in ResearchHub, kind of similar to what Authoria is doing here. And it would be like a long-term prestige battle. It would take like a decade probably. I think like the path of Frontiers In is kind of like a similar one that we could follow, because they're a pretty big journal now. Kind of came out of nowhere. And so
there's the reputation is not great. Like esteemed authors, if they have a choice to publish somewhere else, they do, because people can bully you behind your back if you publish in Frontiers too much.
Right.
There is a middle path though that doesn't take a decade to get into working. How about you do this? Will require some digging into licensing types, but how about you mix it? So you provide support for people during the initial process. Like think about it right now. So OSF does not take your exclusivity for publishing somewhere else. Right, so what you get from OSF is you get these badges, right? So like you have done everything nicely in the process, and as you go to the journal, you will provide it as a supplementary proof of your quality, right? ResearchHub can accomplish similar and more goals, right? So this would be the place where people essentially would do the pre-registration, get feedback from the community, get funded. But once the actual manuscript is ready, you get maybe like some sort of partial exclusivity deal. Like they will be obligated to provide the open source version to ResearchHub, and they will be required to mention ResearchHub in the acknowledgements, or maybe even as an emblem somewhere on top of the article, if the journal agrees to that, of course. What do you think?
Okay, I like that medium idea, and I was just thinking, why don't you offer both options for the authors? One option is to have it reviewed by the ResearchHub community and then publish. And here we can call it publish right now. I think before that we can just call it a public repo or something like that. And also the author can choose to submit this thing to journal to be reviewed. Like, is it the issue, or is it too much features?
I think we could do something like that, because even like most of the preprint servers have similar functionality where they help like preprints essentially get reviewed by legit journals. So I think we could definitely say, hey, we'll help you get published if you share a preprint on ResearchHub as well. Yeah, the middle path sounds reasonable to me. One other open question we had kind of with this whole sort of sharing of more details around papers rather than just the paper itself is, should the like primary post here be a paper or a project, where like maybe the first step of a project is sharing a pre-registration that people can then, like in theory, provide financial support to. So you can go collect data, share that data, eventually create a publication that would end up, being published in another journal or on ResearchHub. Like, I guess the main question there is it better to have the base post here be the paper that files are attached to and authors can use as a marketing material to get funding? Or is it better to have a project more like a GitHub repo where all kinds of different content types can be shared throughout the lifetime of a project?
Well, think about it from the perspective of the funder, right? So if you have money and you want to invest, you probably, like, what are the chances you're going to get on a random GitHub page and going to dig through the stuff there to figure out if it's, quality content that you want to support or not? You probably need, specially prepared as a marketing material, which is in a way pre-registration, right? Like a short summary of what's being done. And then if it catches your interest, then you can start digging into, the materials and whatever else they have. Because I think you overestimate how useful and interesting the insides of the experiment are before it's finished. Like it's confusing without guidance from the authors. It won't even work out of the box most of the time. Stuff like that.
Right.
So one idea that just came to my head, I spoke with a VC a couple weeks ago who I was asking if he funded research, and I showed him experiment.com, and he was like, I would never use this because this is way too technical. All the experiments, it's like the actual species name and stuff. And he was like, I just want to put money towards space travel. Like, I don't want to talk about like rocket fuels and how, they combust and stuff. And so what I was thinking like might be cool is like the concept of an exchange traded fund, where like if I just want to invest in space travel, I can invest in a variety of different researchers who are doing like various portions of space travel without me having to actually read any of their work, or like, someone else decides, like maybe it's a panel of like astrophysicists or something, where that money goes. A similar concept here is on Angel List. Have you guys heard of this? It's like a startup website for investing. They have syndicates where it could be like, oh, I know that like Anton is really good at like cognitive psychology. So like he has a portfolio of projects that he thinks are good. And then people can give their money to Anton to then invest for them because he has a great track record of investing. So like, I think there's something when it comes to the funding of like helping people invest in space travel without making them do any cognitive work at all when it comes to like what that would be. That would be Anton's job to know where those funds should go, or maybe like a panel of researchers who distribute it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I think about it this way: the stuff that's going to be in the repo is the ugly insides of a study, right? This is like 5%, maybe 1% of the actual manuscript writing process, right? So the journals, very likely when they accept the publication, in most of the cases, they don't even look back. Like you put a link into your manuscript that you have it, and they're like, okay, fine, good job, you uploaded it, but no one's actually going to go dig into it. So I think as a functionality, it definitely should exist, what you're developing here. I don't know if people are going to look at it when they're funding. They're probably still going to look at the articulated, passage, like proposal or pre-registration or something written in human terms.
Right, yeah, maybe it's good to step back and ask everyone's opinion. Like, do you think this is a good, useful feature that we should build? Would it improve the site? Any objections?
I like this idea. But having said that, I already have my paper on GitHub, and like it's already contributable. So like for me, it's kind of hard to see how it works.
Right. Yeah. Would you like consider migrating your paper over to ResearchHub to have it like in ResearchHub specifically? Because maybe we offer research coins for like you can apply for a grant on here, maybe that you can't do on GitHub. Would that entice you to switch over?
The incentive is great. Yes, but yeah, my first gut feeling is, oh, I have another copy of paper somewhere, and it's gonna be a version control nightmare or something like that. Yeah,
especially considering this for the version 1 might be like a stripped down version of Git, so it probably won't have all the features you might be used to, and that's sort of by design to like attract scientists who don't already know how to use Git.
Right.
You need to disambiguate the funding and the GitHub functionality, right? Because if there will be funding, like right now, the funding agencies, they don't want to look at your script. They don't want to look at your data. They want a message, right? They want a letter, a cover letter explaining what you're going to do. So I think this thing is wonderful, but it's not for funding, I believe.
How far along in the process do people start funding? Like, how long would you have worked on your project until you're like, okay, I want to go get a grant, right? Like, is it before, like when you just have the idea? Is it usually like when you have some data? Like how far along in the research side?
Normally, like
Where
when
you
you
go
get a
give
professorship, you'll get a startup grant. So that's like the school will give you some money and you get preliminary data in order to like show in your grant application, oh yeah, I'm good at getting, whatever I'm proposing to do. So it's like you always have a little bit of data you use for the grant application to get more stuff. These designs, though, these remind me of something Kobe also brought up a couple months ago, where in theory, like instead of the paper being the base, it's a project, and the front page is like a wiki that might actually be content created for funders or the average person, where you're not actually looking at the paper, you're not looking at the guts. You can if you want to, but like the front thing is like a layman's English like marketing material to get people excited about what's going on like inside the repo. Would that be something you think could be tied to funding, with just like a small summary up front that's like, hey, this is marketing, not exactly science?
Yeah, I mean, you had this idea long before. Remember the pre-registration initiative, right? I think the I don't know what's it called, the ResearchHub, GitLab or something, should be the back side of it. Like you open it as a normal ResearchHub page where there is a proposal, pictures, and everything. But then there is a button you can click that leads you to all the insights.
Yeah. That's sort of the idea. This is kind of like the front-facing, simplified, like distilled version that ResearchHub was originally trying to do. But then, like, if you want to dig in and like actually see the code see all the context in the back, like the development history. Ideally, people are actually updating it like as they're going, and then you could track the development history. You could open issues on it, and that kind of thing. And that would be like the back end part of it. But
we've got like 2 minutes left here, and I want to be conscious of everybody's time. One thing I do think would be useful, because we're going to miss the other two topics, but I'll update everybody on the results from the program or whatever. Kobe, do you have the designs that you showed during our sync like way back? I'd love to like see those too and see like what do you think the biggest differences are? It seems like kind of in similar veins, and I'd love to hear what everybody else thinks.
Sure, I can stop sharing.
Yeah, do you want me to pull them up?
If you have them locally, I can. Okay, cool.
Let me share my screen. Just 1 second. You see my screen?
Yep, perfect.
Yeah, I think I had it in this file. It's a pretty big file, but let's see, hopefully it loads. Oh, there you go. Let me find it. 1 second. So this is a paper. It was like, there you go. So something like this, where you have, this is the project's home, and I think, Joyce, you're talking about like this particular part of a project is analogous to a GitHub repository, and within this part of within the homepage of the project, you have something like a manifest where you can define certain information that you want others that are maybe not so technical to be able to get a glimpse into what this particular like project or initiative, whatever you want to call it, is all about. And obviously there's like different sections to it. Like I'll just quickly run through it, like take 1 minute to run through it. So this is the homepage. Then I also had like a thing for sources. Like, let's say you want to like highlight snippets from like other papers, or in ResearchHub, you can save them into your sources. Maybe a good feature, maybe not. Then there is like an output area of the project where you could basically, share ongoing information as part of your initiative, like an hypothesis or experiment results and things like that. And people can collaborate. They can talk about it. It's kind of like a tweet, but more comprehensive, essentially. And then I think there was one more section here. I don't think I have it, but there was like another section for discussions, essentially, where people can have like loose discussions. Oh, and yeah, the one thing I don't have here is publications. Actually, no, it's part of the output. An output can be a paper, or which can be a data set or whatever. Okay, I'll pause here. Joyce, do you want me to point to anything else?
No, that was awesome. Thank you so much for digging that up and sharing it. Yeah, curious what everybody thinks.
Looks very elaborate. I love it.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of like, I think the right approach here may be like, just like bringing the two worlds of what Thomas worked on and what some of the things I worked on, and like as Joyce said, there is like, and Pat, there's like a lot of things we can do, and it's just about like figuring out what do we focus on first, and what's going to give us the highest ROI, and what's the path to making something, working towards the goal, which is to publish, I believe, right? The original goal is publish original research and content on ResearchHub.
Yeah, like I think it's important to have ResearchHub be a place where researchers actually like actively seek it, because it's like the first place that some original research is. So if they just like want to know like what the cutting edge of something that happened in neuroscience, like they can go to ResearchHub and like know that the paper was there first. And yeah, similar to like maybe what you would use arXiv right now for bioRxiv or medRxiv, like just to see the current cutting edge of research. The goal is to have like that kind of stuff be happening on ResearchHub as well.
Yeah, I have, if you guys don't mind, I have one question. I want to go back to Pat's original question, which is kind of, I'm not sure, Pat, what was your exact question, but I'm very curious about if researchers are going to be publishing regularly on a platform, any platform. And the reason why I'm curious is because, in any other industry, there is a competitive advantage. And yes, we're all working towards like open science, etc. But it kind of sucks if you're posting your stuff and maybe someone else also working towards like an open science thing publishes it, and now you're kind of like, oh, great, I tried to do something good, but I'm not even getting credit for all the time I invested, etc.
There is a workaround. There is a workaround around this on OSF. You can leave some of the content of your project hidden with a timestamp, so people can kind of see the preview. So you have declared that you are going to do this stuff, but you don't specify how. But people already see that there is something posted. It's just hidden, and it's going to be revealed after, let's say, the data are collected, or maybe it's published, or as a condition.
Interesting. So what do you see? You just see like an abstract type thing, like a little preview kind of thing?
Yeah, maybe like, well, I don't know if this is people share this idea in business world, but ideas by themselves, they're not worth anything. They're garbage. Everyone has ideas, right? The implementation is what's important. So maybe people can describe what is the research question, what is the rationale, how they're going to tackle it, but they're not going to reveal what is the study design, like what are the conditions, how are they going to be implemented. That's going to be problematic if the general audience doesn't believe that they can, make it work. Like if I'm going to propose, I'm going to do cold fusion in my backyard without sharing the the details, maybe no one's going to believe me.
Got it. Thanks. Yeah, makes sense.
So I have a question for the community members who are here. I think like maybe 2 calls back or so, where we were discussing that another feature we were planning to do for Q3. It was like the kind of like meta studies, like hypothesis evidence graph thing, where you have like a set of papers and you can sort of like vote on them to see if it like whether it supports or doesn't support some hypothesis. Like, do you think that this like GitHub style repo feature is like should be prioritized before that other feature or after, or what is your sense on that? Which feature gets you more excited? I think like Anton and Nami, you were there, and someone else.
What do you think, Nami?
Sorry, what's that?
Yeah, like if you remember like a few calls ago when we discussed that other feature, that was like something that Brian wanted us to build for Q3, and this is like another feature, and we're just trying to figure out sort of priorities here, like what the community thinks would be more valuable.
Is it the one that where you create more?
Yeah, maybe
more boss types.
Right, maybe
it would be like a research question. So it would be like,
that one.
Here are all the papers that say the world is flat, and then you can criticize that hypothesis.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it looks very solid, and I think it's easy to implement. It's like I wouldn't necessarily. It's like for me, it's gonna be like a public poll in a way. Like I wouldn't view it as like I come in and I see, which alternative is correct, because it's like if it would be moderated by specialists who know how to select articles, I trust are not going to cherry pick. But this one is also interesting, right? It can be an interesting starting point for digging, and I believe there were 3 options for the design.
Yeah.
And I do remember liking the leftmost the best, but this is the extent of my memory.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can quickly just pull up the designs and like sort of quickly summarize the feature and get everyone's sense on like whether like what we should build first.
Oh yeah. So the rightmost was a wiki style where everyone posts and edits the same passage. This one I hate personally, unfortunately. The one where everyone introduces the basic people add articles that they think are relevant, right? And
Sorry, Patrick, could you open the designs?
And they categorize these articles as this is in favor of one answer to the question, and this is in favor of the opposite answer to the question, correct?
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's already it's good to go. You can implement it today. It's gonna work well. Ideally, in the ideal world, there will be some backtracking and moderating. Like people can go back and be like, no, this one should not be a part of the weighting procedure, even if it's super upvoted. Like it was misleading and people got baited, but it no longer applies.
So we can, Thomas, I think we probably still have more thinking to do on this feature anyway. So we can come back next week and come with a little bit more solidified designs and try and get a better temperature. Okay. So yeah, we're like 10 minutes over now. And thank you guys so much for going through that. And thank you, Thomas, for presenting your ideas there. I think that was pretty cool. Does anybody have any questions or anything before we hop off? Oh, I have the results too from the Power User program where Anton, I think, did about 1 million comments. So 7 on each with 11 responses. So he's been teared shit up. Philip and Nick also did a ton. I think I've got 1 post from Philip and 4 comments. And then Nick has 7 posts and 7 comments. And both Philip and Nick, 2 of those comments were responses. So yeah, that was super successful. I guess I lied about trying to jump off. But do you guys have any thoughts on this week versus last week versus anything we should do next week? Because I think like generally this last week has been freaking awesome. Like there's a lot of really interesting stuff that's actually being shared on ResearchHub. So
there is something about visibility of the comments themselves. People don't even upvote them. Like people upvote the articles, but not the comments. I still don't know. Like, have you brainstormed what would be the ways to, incentivize people to meaningfully upvote some posts that they like, but not other posts they don't like, or comments?
I've noticed that too. It's like harder. It's more clicks to actually get to the comments. So it's like, just takes a lot of time to go through and comment or upvote them all, especially if there's a good conversation going. I wonder, we can think about it and get back to you, because I've had that same thought, and we need to make it easier to appreciate like good commentary on a paper. It's even more valuable.
I think it's a lot of it is the design, because the design is focused on the paper, and it doesn't feel like the comments are like tier 1. It feels like the paper and then everything else. So.
Do you think you can make a third tab, or that you're gonna have posts, papers, and comments, and then in comments it's just gonna be select.
Right, maybe, but I think it should happen 1 degree earlier too. I mean, if you go to the paper itself, it doesn't 100% feel like you should read comments. Kind of like when you go to Amazon product, you don't feel like, oh, I should read the reviews. You just see like, oh, here's a general rating, and then here's what the product is. Like, people are not scrolling through those things at the bottom. So,
Anton, one thing we can do is give some of the upvotes from the paper to the commenters. So, like, is this for RSC earnings, or do you want to have like appreciation of your comment with upvotes?
No, it's not even about appreciation. Like I view them. I think that they're like views. Like so I don't know how to disentangle. Like, do people see them? They just don't upvote them, or do people generally don't even scroll down?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we'll work on that. We'll come back with something where they're a little bit more prominent.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Does anybody have anything else? Awesome. Thank you guys so much. That was super helpful. And thanks for hanging on for another 15 minutes too. That was great. See you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. See ya.
Yeah.